Hey, what's up, everybody? The VC here, coming at you with another about anything and everything. It's the VC, the Villain Club. And I think a lot of stuff I talk about is popular opinion, but at the same time, people want to downplay it or maybe scared to talk about things. But anyhow, I'm here to talk about it. I'm here to bring things to light, show you the other side of things. And with that, let's just get to it here. All right, long live the king of the chicken wing, the Villain Club. Oh yeah. Alright. The VC. You can see me on Rumble or YouTube, doesn't matter. Alright. Whichever suits you best. I'm here for you. Alright, so let's get to it, alright? I've been sidestepping the whole tariff talk these last couple weeks because a lot of it, when it comes to people and the whole tariff stuff, is that they've been running on emotion, right? Anytime he talked about tariffs and applying it, I'm talking about Trump, that is, the market reacts and dumps, right? And people take money and all, like, they're scared, right? And it's like, I just look at it just another day. And now just announced, pretty much yesterday, that now, all right, Trump is now pausing tariffs for 90 days, except for China. So he's trying to make a message to China, hey, people are wanting to talk and make deals and all that, and whereas China wants to amplify tariffs and it's all right, we're going to do our tariffs, and then Trump said, all right, well, if you're going to do that, then we're going to do us and raise it to now 125%, because it's just the disparity of what they get from us versus what we get from them, and what we don't apply to the goods that come from them, right, which is tariffs. So that's the whole thing about it. And then people are reacting on emotion. The market reacts on emotion. And the big picture is that it's a two-part thing, right? The way you look at it, you got to look at it like this, right? In order for Trump to apply tax cuts, right, across the board, tax cuts, what makes a lot of sense is that in order, because money has to come from somewhere, right? You can't just cut taxes and not expect government to have anything, right? And that's understandable. That's why tariffs come into play, because if we're not paying taxes, which is fine, I'm good with not paying taxes, who's going to pay the taxes? Or, the government. Other countries will. Tariffs, right? Because we continue to spin, and nothing comes from it. Printing money, spending, and it's like, wait a second here. And then they're trying to ask us to pay for it, right, on their overspending, especially by Biden, right? Because Democrats are irresponsible. So what do Democrats do every time they overspend? They either print money, which causes inflation to go up, or they tax us, right? They continue to tax, right? That's what Democrats do. Whereas Trump, on the other hand, he wants to cut taxes. In order to cut taxes, money has to come from somewhere. So he's doing his part in terms of cutting government, right? Government, the bureaucracy of it, the overspending. He's trying to cut all that. That plays a part in terms of, not taxing us anymore, right? And tax cutting. That plays a part, but more needs to happen in order for the tax cuts make a difference and make us feel the difference, right? And so the big thing from that is, if you tariff other countries, because we've unfairly not have tariffed their countries in terms of what products and goods that come in, it would make a lot more sense for those countries to pay on our behalf as taxpayers. You know what I mean? And so when you do that, it makes a whole lot of sense for tax cuts to happen, right? That's why it's a two-part setup. One can't happen without the other. So if countries are doing their part in terms of paying the tariffs, tax cuts can happen, right? Because now other countries are paying what is not coming from us anymore. All right. Plus, the stuff that hasn't been taxed over the years or tariffed over the years, right? Other countries are getting away with it, right? Now it's time for the house to collect, and we are the house. The USA is the house. It's time to collect, and the thing about it is that we haven't been collecting for a very, 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 very long time. So that's why Trump came in and said we got to start doing this. We got to tariff the countries. Just to make it a level playing field in terms of, they're getting us all the time on our products. Some countries, tariff the shit out of us, and so less products and goods come from us because other countries put high tariffs on us, on our stuff, right? And whereas we continue to bring in a shitload of, other countries' stuff. So then when you look at it, it's like, yeah, it's not a level playing field. So he's just trying to do this as a means to bring other countries to the table and talk. And when he first talked about it, I think, he was just really, I think other countries were thinking he's bluffing. Oh, he's just saying that. He's not going to do nothing, right? Because Biden didn't do nothing. Biden doesn't do nothing. And of course, if you go back to Obama, of course Obama wouldn't do nothing. Trump's first presidency, he was kind of, his hands were tied because of the people he worked with, right? And it was a different type of government at the time, so the stuff he wanted to do, he was tied because it was really hard to get things through, because as it looked more partisan, it wasn't really partisan at all. It was kind of an uphill battle for him in his first presidency, whereas this time around, he has the House, he has the Senate, he has everything. So the Supreme Court, for the most part, has been siding with him. So now he's able to do things and implement things that he wasn't able to do in his first presidency. So when you go back, all right, I don't even think Bush even considered tariff anything at all. If you're going back to George W. Bush, right, ran for 2 terms. Plus he was kind of a buffoon anyways. Going into Iraq for war, that's a whole different story. But when there's no reason, weapons of mass destruction, right? Come on, in Iraq, right? But like I said, that's a whole different story, right? Different time to talk. But then when you look at Obama didn't really and wouldn't have tariff countries. And when you look at everything else, right, I just mentioned Trump. Of course, Biden wouldn't do nothing. So Trump's now here to collect, right? The House is collecting. And what paved the way is going back to the 90s, right, when Bill Clinton was president. Paved the way to, open up trading with China. I think he opened the door for trading with China. And that's what kind of caused the cheap flow of goods, when it came to factories and outsourcing products, outsourcing, materials, making of products in other countries, especially in China with their cheap labor, right? And so that's what opened the door, was in the 90s, right? Because China wasn't really in the picture for the most part. They were kind of, but not really. And Clinton kind of paved the way for that. So now, fast forward to now, things haven't really changed much in China, right? Cost of goods being made in China when it comes to wages. It's still relatively low wages and lots of products being made in China. Some are so cheaply made, they're still just making it, right, and sending it over. So they've been getting away with a lot, right? And so that's why China is upset, and they don't want to change what's been kind of set for all these years of them just collecting, making money, a shit ton of it too, because everything's being outsourced to China, right? So now that U.S. is trying to reverse course and tap into that and be like, hey, we want some of that money back. China's mad about it, right? And so they don't know how to react. Rather than just come to the table and bargain, negotiate, they decided, oh, we're going to tariff more on U.S. goods, right? And again, it's already been disparaging as it is because they've already put a high tariff on our product. That's why not so much of our stuff has gone over there, right? And if it has been, there's been high tariffs on it already. So that's the whole thing with tariffs and everything, right? So now what happens from here, right? When you look at it, right, what happens from here? Again, Trump made it very clear, even when his run for his second election, he said that he's going to start doing tariffs with other countries. And as I said earlier, countries were thinking he's bluffing, right? Because, if you're a good card player, you're a good bluffer, right? And Trump's, when it comes to money, he's always been good about that. And what he says, he follows through, right? So that's what he did. He followed through. So far, since being elected, he's followed through with everything he said he was going to do. He said that he was going to close the border. He said that he's going to look into cutting government. He said he's going to do all these different things, tariff other countries. He said he's going to end wars. And it's only been, January, February, March, less than 3 months, right, into his presidency. So a lot has already happened just in the short time, such as closing the border. They said that it's been the lowest border crossing numbers in decades, right? Ever in decades. Think about that. And if you recall, Biden said, I can't do nothing without the act of Congress passing new legislation. When all Trump did was put executive orders and close the border and start a deportation, right? And say, hey, not only were we going to close it, we're going to start deporting, which he has followed through and did. And that's what's happened, right? So with the whole tariff thing, he said he was going to do tariffs mainly as a strategy to bring people to the table, right? To say, hey, let's talk, let's make a deal happen, because as a businessman, because that's his background, is that he's a businessman, right? And when it comes to money, people will always talk, right? Because it's money. People will always want to talk when it comes to money. Why do you think Ukraine and Russia has come to the table when it comes to peace? Because it's about the goods, right? That, the supply, the minerals and all that stuff, the goods. It's about money. It's about making a business deal happen, right? And that's the thing about it. That's what's bringing them to the table, is they're trying to make this business deal happen, right? That's going to be good for all sides. I hate to say it. I think Ukraine might have to, give in and give up to Russia, I think. Unless they could coexist in peace, I don't know. Unless Russia's really there to really make a deal on something that will suffice to Putin, but I don't know. He's just more of looking at Ukraine as a threat to join NATO, and he doesn't want NATO, all right, to expand bordering Russia, because that was the whole idea. Was he took over these areas was because he didn't want NATO to expand into Ukraine and all these other bordering countries bordering Russia. That's the whole idea, because he sees it as a threat, and that's understandable. I get it, but that's a whole different talk again. All right, so business again is what's at hand. Israel is even on the table when it comes to bargaining and trying to make a deal. All these other countries have come to the table and want to make a deal. So only really big holdout is China themselves, because they're the biggest trading partner there is in the world, especially the U.S. And so that's what leaves things at where they're at right now. So markets react every time Trump has announced, right, as I mentioned earlier. So now that he announced a pause, what happened? $2 trillion have come back to stocks, right? Crypto has gone up, but it's kind of started to go back down again. Again, people are acting on emotion. I think if he mentioned, we're no longer going to tariff China, or some odd announcement with China, I think that you're going to see money go crazy even more into the crypto and stocks and all that are going on. So let's take a look at this news clip here on this right here, real quick. Here, it's a quick news clip.
China, meantime, is still under pressure to make a deal with the White House this morning. Yesterday, Trump increased the tariff rate on goods imported from China to 125% in response to China's retaliatory tariffs.
And, look, nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. It's one of those things they don't know how quite.
They're just reacting on emotions.
And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well, and they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal.
Trump also said the sale of TikTok, with the possibility of that larger trade deal with China, could still be on the table.
Yeah, there's actually a group backed by Kevin O'Leary, guy on Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, the bald guy, that is trying to step in as a group to buy TikTok. So imagine having TikTok and X as two open social medias that are not censored, like the left, how they censored media over these last few years, to have that come into play. But China backed out of any sort of deal with U.S. when it came to TikTok, until this whole tariff thing has worked itself out too, by the way. Let's see what Fox has to say about that.
Most drivers don't know that they can buy out their lease because it's not really talked about, right? It's not really talked about at the dealer.
As we continue with your breaking news headlines, China is reaching out this morning to other nations as the U.S. layers on more tariffs in what appears to be an attempt to form a united front to compel Washington to retreat. AP reports this morning that days into the effort, it's meeting only partial success, with many countries unwilling to ally with the main target of President Donald Trump's trade war. Facing the cratering of global markets, Trump on Wednesday backed off his tariffs on most nations for 90 days, saying that countries were lining up to negotiate more favorable conditions. Well, this morning, China has refused to seek talks, saying it would, quote, fight to the end in a tariff war, prompting President Trump to further jack up the tax rate on Chinese imports to now 125%. Well, China has retaliated back to the U.S. with tariffs on U.S. goods now at 84%. Those have taken effect today. A lot to dissect and discuss this morning, so we want to bring into the conversation.
Like I said, when it came to China putting tariffs on American goods, it's always been higher than U.S. tariffs on China goods, if you get what I'm saying.
Samir Kapadia, he leads Vogel Group's trade practice. Samir, always a pleasure having you join us on the show. Good morning to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Certainly a lot to
It's
talk
not bad
about.
looking.
Definitely. A lot of Americans this morning
She's a
feeling a
banger.
whiplash, for lack of better words, with the back and forth that's going on with this trade war. Catch us up. There are a lot of numbers. As we know, there's a halt with certain tariffs and an increase on other ends. Catch us up. What are the latest numbers?
So, currently you're looking at a system where China has imposed an 84% tariff on the importation of goods from the United States. And we export around $145 billion worth of goods into that country. Vice versa, as the United States, we import anywhere between 400 to $500 billion worth of goods from China every year. And so you see this dramatic gap or this trade inequity where we're just buying a lot more things from them than they are from us. And so the
Exactly.
president's objective here in creating this 125% tariff on Chinese imports is to curb that number, is to say we don't need to solely rely upon China for a variety of these household goods and materials and chemicals and all the various minerals that we need to accomplish what we can in an economy. So I think what we're seeing here is a lot of the same. There seems to be a lot of fear factor in the markets around this being a dramatic move by the president, but it's quite rational. In fact, we as the United States have been doing this for a very long time through other things like Section 301 tariffs, Section 232 tariffs, anti-dumping countervailing duties. So it's a lot of the same. I just think the president's now doing it with more volume and veracity in a way to protect American jobs.
There you go.
Samir, a lot to discuss as it relates to the goods and services between the U.S. and China, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to dissect and understand the very latest from President Donald Trump. You've seen the headlines as he has authorized that 90-day pause on some tariffs. What does that mean for global trade?
Well, it shows that the president is demonstrating a little bit of caution towards immediately punishing a lot of countries where, frankly, we have some very good legacy relationships, whether that be with South Korea, Japan, India. Even if you look in our own borders with Canada and Mexico, we've had some difficult times, but all in all, we value these partnerships just as we do with blocs like Europe. I think what the president is doing here is he's saying, look, there's a lot to rectify. There's a lot that we can accomplish together. Let's wait 90 days before I institute these reciprocal tariffs so that we can negotiate and find some common ground. And I think that common ground is going to be a coin that has two sides. The first side is going to be foreign direct investment. The United States wants to see significant foreign direct investment from all of these trade partners in a way that can spur domestic manufacturing jobs here at home. Secondly, he's going to want to see that they lower their tariff barriers. So this means things like their own tariffs and their own non-tariff barriers that provide us market access. U.S. companies want to participate in these markets, but sometimes because of the way that you form entities or the way that they restrict capital outflows, you can't always freely operate in these countries. So what he's saying is, let's look at that coin together and let's find ways that you're investing in the United States in ways that you're allowing us to participate in your economy. So once again, super rational. And that 90-day period, he's only giving to countries that he believes have not retaliated. China has very overtly retaliated in a kind of tit for tat, which frankly is not productive and doesn't at all constitute a building towards an equity and a level playing field. He's found that because of these announcements, that maybe 60 to 70 countries are showing that goodwill to the United States and saying, we will come to the table, we want to work with you, and we realize that an American partnership is important. Unfortunately, you're not seeing that with China.
Samir, thank you so much.
Interesting stuff. And did you know for a fact that when it came to original tariffs, right? We only tariff China 25%, right? And China has been well above that. All right, so that's the reason why U.S. said we're gonna tax it an additional 100% on top of that, 125%, right? And so China said they're gonna raise it 84%. Their tariffs have always been higher, anyways, on us. So that's why Trump just say, you know what? We bring in a shit ton of stuff and you're not doing the same on your part and we're paying for it. You guys are not. That's why, that's what dude was saying. Hey, We got to make this more fair here. So that's what's going on here. And yeah, we'll see what happens with all this.
For that detailed breakdown. And as you discussed, the tariffs and the retaliation from China is the perfect segue to this graph that I want to share with you and the viewers this morning. This just coming in from the Associated Press. As we know, President Donald Trump raising tariffs on China to now 125%. And then we are also learning today, and it actually goes into effect today, that China is imposing the 84% tariffs on U.S. American goods. Well, if you take a look at your screen, these are the top 10 U.S. exports to China. We have soybeans, aircraft and parts, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, industrial machines, crude oil, liquid natural gas, plastic materials, cars, new and used, and then medicinal equipment. What does this mean? Many people don't realize, Samir, the everyday goods and services that go between the U.S. and China.
Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate because a lot of these exports, involve economies that are critical, like Texas, California, Louisiana. These are big hubs for agriculture and for energy and a variety of industries that we support as critical. So if now China is saying we're going to charge an 84% tariff on the export of things like oil seeds and grains, and keep in mind grains are things like wheat and corn. These are very important states, not just politically but economically. Now they're saying we don't want those at a price that's going to be convenient for us. And I think that's going to limit the ability for states like Texas, California, and Louisiana, and some of these industries to participate and to sell. So this is a net loser for the United States. We don't like this. It's not productive. And I think that the president's going to come out pretty strong in trying to rectify it through counterbalancing it with what we have now, 125% tariff. And frankly, if China keeps this up, I think those tariffs on Chinese imports might very well go up to 200% if we see this attitude continue to play out.
Yeah, and perfect segue right now, sharing with you all the top 10 U.S. imports from China. Again, coming from the Associated Press, we have mobile phones, computers, accessories, electric and industrial equipment, toys, games and sporting goods, clothing and textiles, car parts, yeah, household appliances, telecommunications equipment, furniture, household goods, cookware, cutlery, tools. A lot of Americans concerned this morning, Samir, at the prices of their goods and services that are imported from China will now go up.
Well, it's too early to tell whether we'll be paying $400 for Christmas lights this holiday season, but I will say that there is going to be an effort right now for the president to encourage the domestic base to maybe look outside of China for some of these goods where maybe you haven't looked before. I mean, if you look at countries like India, for instance, we saw just not even a day ago, Apple decided to double down on their investment in India. They've invested in some product lines there.
Another one to tap into is Vietnam, too.
Making iPhones. Now they're realizing that maybe partnering with a large democratic country is a better way to do business. And so I think the U.S. has to look outside of China. We can't, as a country, import $400-500 billion worth of goods from one country. And worst part is that China is aware of this. And what they've been doing is circumventing these tariffs by investing in places like Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, and elsewhere. And so I think American consumers and manufacturers have to be wary that even if you're looking at a China plus one strategy for sourcing, that country that you're operating in very well might be a hotbed for Chinese investment and Chinese manufacturing, where all that money goes back to Beijing anyway. And frankly, that's the reason why you have these things called reciprocal tariffs, because they counter some of the trade circumvention. And so we don't know what immediate impact this is going to have on your consumer goods in the near term.
It hasn't been
but the hope is that American companies can diversify outside of China, so we're not truly reliant upon one country. And so, like with India, I think that's slowly going to manifest.
Good stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly what he said. China, even though they're in China, Chinese people are everywhere in terms of putting businesses in different countries outside of China. So yeah, what he said is true, because some of that will go back to China anyways. But again, there are plenty of countries that still make products anyways. Like plenty of stuff comes from Vietnam, whether they're China companies or not. In the end, it's still coming from Vietnam. It's coming from other countries, like you were saying. India, with Apple investing more into India. I don't know how that's going to be, but it'd be interesting. But I mean, there's already call centers in India, anyways, and all that. A lot of them in India, a lot of them in the Philippines, and things like that. But anyhow, all this stuff is just to bring parity. Is in the end, it's just parity and doing what's fair for the U.S. Right? Because we've been giving for way too long, and the whole messaging that he's trying to put is that, hey, we're trying to rein everything back in. We're trying to rein it all back in, and what's fair for us for a change. Right? We're tired of giving. It's time for us to start taking things back, and that's what he's doing. Trump, that is. So we'll see what happens, because so far, with all this talk, people have been reacting emotionally, but nothing has happened yet, which is funny. Now we're on a pause, except for China, so we'll see if it actually come into play as time goes on. All right, so that's just my whole tariff talk. I've been kind of sidestepping it because I'm trying to see this thing play out, and so they're in a pause at the moment in terms of putting these tariffs in place, except for China, and we'll go from there. But the market has been reacting favorably so far, because like I said, trillions of dollars go back into stocks. Crypto went up like crazy. It's like I said, it's kind of tapered off, but and the list goes on and on. People are reacting on emotion once again, so I wouldn't doubt seeing another yo-yo effect on any sort of tariff announcement. People react once again. Other than that, let me know what you think. Comment down below. It is the VC, and comment down below. I'm on, like I said, Rumble. I'm on YouTube. Thanks. I'll see you next one.